So we have some new details about Donald Trump's impending 2021 budget. And unsurprisingly, it's bad. Now, in it, of course, we see the recycling of a bunch of really bad ideas that were in previous budgets. But absent are two things: cutting Medicare and Social Security. I'll get into that later. But according to HuffPost, Trump's fiscal 2021 plan promises to reduce the deficit after allowing it first to spike to about $1 trillion this year before slowly having it decrease till about 2030, where it'll settle somewhere around $200 billion. So now, as you've probably guessed, it will be the poor and the environment, etc., that will bear the brunt of these budget cuts that will bring us to that point, allegedly, of course. Now, first of all, Trump's budget would impose immediate 5% cut to non-defense agency budgets passed by Congress. So, okay, so everything that's non-defense. So you're talking about the EPA, right? You're probably talking about the IRS. All these different agencies will see a 5% cut across the board. The proposal also cuts $700 billion out of Medicaid over the next 10 years, also cuts food and housing assistance by about $300 billion. The Trump budget would also, in order to save money on food stamps, would revive the Trump food box. Now, what is a Trump food box? Basically, it would replace the SNAP card. You would no longer, if you were on food stamps, you would no longer get the food stamp card loaded with cash every month, right? Which you could go and buy food with. Instead, they'll literally send you a food box. And that's it. Here you go. Here's your government approved cheese. Literal government cheese. Not only that, the student loan forgiveness plan would also see a cut of around $170 billion. You know that program that's supposed to actually forgive student loans for people who have been, doing public sector service work and have been paying on their loans for 10 years? Yeah, no, we're going to spike it. And we're going to cut that, and we're going to make sure that almost nobody is eligible for it, which is what Betsy DeVos has already been doing, so that we can save $170 billion, allegedly. Now, they would also privatize the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And would completely eliminate the AmeriCorps volunteer program. And that is just a few of the details that I know now. The full budget is yet to be released, but so far, bad, very bad. Now, this plan also, and this is really couched in the terms of, oh no, here's what we need to do is to be able to take down the deficit. And so that's what this budget's all about. It's to remove the deficit, right? To cut it down, right? Okay, well, here's the thing. You could have avoided all the spending by not doing giant tax cuts for the rich and corporations. And also, along with the help of the Democrats, by the way, they're not getting off the hook for that, passing an increase in Donald Trump's military budget to about $750 billion. They could have. But anyway, this whole thing, again, is couched in deficit reduction. And the plan, according to HuffPost, relies on economic projections of about 2.8% economic growth this year and 3% over the long term. Now, that's really optimistic. And there's kind of no basis in reality for that, and no promise that will continue to happen. And so really rosy projections based on basically nothing, right? Not only that, but they also base this on being able to achieve future cuts in domestic programs. So they're not done with the cutting. All of which, of course, was supposed to get us by 2030 to a budget deficit of around $261 billion. So now here's the thing, right? No one cares about deficits. Not even Republicans care about deficits. And let's be honest about that, right? Because, again, the surefire way to eliminate these deficits is, again, roll back the tax cuts for the rich, right? That Trump Reagan, all those, you know, uh, figures put into place, right? All those past presidents who basically work for their donors. Okay, we start to, actually put taxes up, corporate taxes back up to 35%. Hell, I'd take them back up to 70%. That's marginal taxes, anything over $10 million. So, like, that's what I would do. And I know heads just exploded, but really, it we need to bring some sort of economic equality back into the mix, because there's some devastating numbers, right? Um, and I'll get to those in another story. But look, you can't just expect there to be less spending, right? Or more money to go around if you eliminate income, which of course is why they're going to the, well, we've got to cut things too. Yeah, but the only things you cut are vital programs for the poor and the middle class. So, look, it's disastrous, man. Now, there's more money that is being apportioned to ridiculous stuff. According to the administration, the proposed budget gives $2 billion more to Donald Trump's wall. Now, according to the administration so far, Trump has been able to steal enough money from other agencies in order to build about 1,000 miles of wall. So, not only that, but as Trump has also proposed adjustments to eligibility for Social Security disability benefits and has proposed cuts to Medicare providers, such as hospitals, in order to reduce costs. But he says, well, I didn't touch benefits whatsoever. I mean, that's true. He didn't cut benefits for Medicare and Social Security. However, Medicaid, you saw there's a massive amount of cuts for Medicaid, and they want to make it harder for people to be on disability. And so that's what we know so far about the budget plan. The reason I didn't wait for the full proposal to come out before talking about it is because it's not going to pass. So, I mean, there is some worth in going through a lot of the particulars, but I think in a general sense, this shows you the direction that they want to go. That's their priorities. And so let me point out the reason and why they actually didn't propose cuts to Medicare and Social Security in this, because it's an election year. I mean, look, people are paying attention now. And look, I don't think a lot of people are going to be receptive to the idea of cutting Medicare and Medicaid, or I'm sorry, Medicare and Social Security. Hell, even Medicaid cuts, a lot of people oppose, but they're going to couch it in, oh, but we're doing this for deficit reduction. And we're actually going to, in the way that they're trying to change Medicaid, is turn it into a block grant program. And so they're going to say, oh, but it allows more flexibility for the states. And so, we do a block grant program, we're going to save money, and we're going to give the states the freedom that they need. And that's the way that they can try to sell it to conservative voters. And even that might not work because there's a lot of conservative voters that are also on Medicaid that benefit from it. But anyway, there's that. But Trump, basically, he's trying to show that he can deal with the deficit that he blew up insanely because of the giant tax cuts and the military spending, which, by the way, that military spending does not go to the troops. It goes to defense contractors. Just pointing that out. But look, I don't think, again, his voters, they're not going to care too much. No, this is for the people in Washington. The only people that care about this are people on Wall Street and people on Washington or in Washington. And so nobody else, no regular person actually gives a crap about deficit reduction. No. In reality, most people care about whether or not they can afford, to pay their rent, pay their mortgage, their car payments, et cetera, buy food, and afford their health insurance. If you're one of the, people that the 4 in 10 Americans, 40%, that cannot afford a $400 emergency, you're not out there talking about how the deficit needs to be smaller. I'm just saying. The number one concern actually among the American people is actually healthcare. And of course, by an extension, the economy. Does the economy work for you? I don't think it does. In many cases, it doesn't. Unemployment might be low, but so are wages. Benefits are being taken away while corporate profits are up the charts. Executive pay, for example, is at record highs. From 1978 to 2018, CEO compensation grew by a staggering 1,007%. That's CEO executive pay. Do you want to know how much worker pay grew by? A paltry 11%. Disastrous. None of this budget addresses any of that. Instead, what it does is that it cuts benefits for the poor who are already working but don't make enough to survive. And that's why, of course, this budget matters. Even though it will never be passed, it wouldn't make it through the House, might not even make it through the Senate, but it does show their priorities, right? It shows the priorities are basically in line with the wealthy, i.e., the budget deficit. It basically shows that all they care about is the wealthy, is the stock market, are the financiers, and Wall Street. And of course, that's who the donors are. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.